What, bud? What's up?
Nothing. I was just gonna see if you were getting my present ready.
Your present for what?
The present that you guys got me for the 5th day of Hanukkah.
Yeah,
You getting it ready?
I am getting it ready. So if you go upstairs, I'll bring it up in a minute.
Okay.
All right.
I'm going back.
This is his present for the 5th day of Hanukkah. Randy Orton action figure. Kid loves his wrestling. All right.
Hey man, what's wrong with you?
Well, I have a sort of suggestion, and that is this, that before we decide either to save the planet or to destroy it, we pause for a moment of silence.
What's going on, guys? Nick Lesagore here, Exit 12 Homebrew in the house. In the brewery today, I am brewing in late December. How cool is that? Global warming, am I right? Anyway, I'm brewing up a beer today that is experimental in nature. I want to start brewing more experimental beers. I want to see, where I can take where my brewing limit lies. And so one of the things that I'm doing is I'm reviving from last year an experimental West Coast IPA series I called Progress 71. I won't tell you why, because it's private, why that beer name is what it is, but what I'm doing now is I'm going to be brewing a West Coast IPA. The Progress 71 series is an experimental West Coast IPA series of beers. What I want to do this year is try to find a house IPA, a go-to IPA that I can brew whenever I want, put on tap, just like some of my other beers. And also what that means is I'm also brewing a 5-gallon batch. Because it's experimental, I'm going back to the 5-gallon batch, and so I'm going to be using my smaller fermenter, the Firmzilla. So let's talk, because I get a lot of feedback. Nick, share the grain bill. Nick, give us tasting updates. Nick, why are you so handsome? And some of those I can answer and some of them I cannot. Firstly, genetics. But secondly, I will start sharing these recipes with you. I'll try to be better about sharing the recipes. So I'll put it up on the screen. But this beer was really put together 2 days ago. I had no time to get ingredients. I was at work. I went on, looked at the weather, saw it was going to be 53 degrees today. And I said, dang, I need to brew. What do I have in stock? Thank goodness that I carry base grains, in stock, and then I have some, parts here and there of some specialty grains. So I decided I was going to do the West Coast IPA. All I had to do was order yeast, and I actually had to go on Amazon to order it because it was such a short time period. Beer and Wine wasn't going to be able to get it to me. And even now I don't have the yeast. Even now I'm waiting. Amazon's like, it'll be here by 10 p.m. I'm going to be done with this beer by 2. Anyway, so Bezos, hook me up. Let me get it like an Amazon gold card where I get like somebody on standby to like either get in a plane or immediately drive over and give me what I need. That's where we're heading. Anyway, my grist for this beer, I'm going with a 50-50 mix of Pilsner and Turo, which is kind of typical of a lot of my beers, at least it used to be. With some of my more mainstay beers, like my Honey Blondale and stuff, I don't think that's necessarily the case. But we're also going in with 4 ounces of Caramel 10, 10 ounces of honey malt, which may be a little heavy-handed, but we'll see. And that is it for the grist. I want to experiment more, but that also doesn't mean brewing like an idiot. I don't need every single beer to be 2 base grains and 8 or 9 specialty grains. Sometimes simplicity is the point of arrival. And so what I'm going to be doing with this beer, actually, and this is also because I have a limitation on the hops that I have, but I'm hopping this on hot side with strictly fresh Centennial hops from Yakima Valley Hops, 2024. batch, 2024 and year. So 11.4% alpha acid. And I'm going to be adding those hops throughout the boil. So 1 ounce at 60 minutes, that's going to add 31 IBUs. Another ounce at 30 minutes. 3/4 of an ounce at 15 minutes. Half an ounce at flame out. So no whirlpooling on this West Coast IPA. And I know you're saying, Nick, what are you doing? You need more aroma, baby. Let me get some of that aroma, babe. Well, the reason why I'm not whirlpooling is because I'm going to be adding 4 ounces of hop hash into the dry hop. I'm going to be dry hopping with a big whopping load of 4 ounces of a hop product called hop hash. Right now I have it listed as Citra. And I know Citra's a classic West Coast IPA hop, but it also is used for almost every single iteration of New England IPA first run that a brewery or a brewer makes. Citra's almost become a New England IPA hop at this point. So I'm thinking about Citra hop hash, but I'm going to go on Yakima Valley Hops and see if they have a Cascade hop hash. I'd really like to use like another C hop like Cascade in this, but I'll update you as I go through on that because I'm not 100% sure where I'm going to land. I also have a West Coast IPA that I brewed with my buddy Dave, Jack DeBoss Brewing. He's the one that got me into home brewing. Sitting in my Keyser right now. We tried it. He came over yesterday for Hanukkah. We tried it, and it's not great. I'm going to can some up for him because he wants it, but it has, the aroma on it is prototypical West Coast IPA. We used Centennial for it, and he wanted to use Simcoe, which isn't necessarily a West Coast IPA hop, but then we dry hopped it with 4 ounces of Citra hop hash. I think we might have just left the hop hash in too long, or he fermented it at his house in his living room, so it wasn't temperature controlled. And I think he said he fermented at probably 64. I think we were looking at about 68. For the BRY 97 yeast, you can ferment lower. 63 degrees is where that starts, but I wanted it a little bit higher. So anyway, not a great beer. It has this weird, tastes like Dawn dish soap on the back end. Not great. So I don't know if that's hops necessarily, or if it's fermentation temp. I lean firm temp. But anyway, so I'm going to be doing that. And the yeast that I'm using, I'm playing around between BRY 97 and Laleham Nottingham, both of which I have in transit to my house. But I'm leaning Nottingham. Folks have seen in the Homebrew Club, folks seem to have a great experience with Nottingham, so that's where I'm leading. The Homebrew Club, BrewTubers Online Brewers Club, www.brewtubers.com. Join us. Looking at a 6% ABV and 66 IBUs. I probably could have gone a little bit higher on the IBU, but I'm happy with where that's at for now. And so that's what we're going to do today. I'm really excited to get back to brewing. It's been a few months. I have some beers on tap that are not great. Like my blueberry wheat. I tried that again yesterday. It's got something going on with it, not great. And so I need to start, I want to brew some good beer. I have high standards maybe, I don't know, but I want to start brewing some good beer. So let's get into it. It's going to be a fun day of brewing. The fog is starting to leave a little bit. It should be in the 50s today. I tested the hoses yesterday. I should be fine. Dave, Big Dog Brewing, should be fine. I shouldn't have to put any hot water on my spigot to clean out the ice, to shake the ice out of there. So I should be good to go. So let's have a fun day of brewing. Let's get going.
I don't mean that kind of grim silence. That's not silence at all. I mean real silence, in which we stop thinking. Because after all, if I talk all the time, I can't hear what anyone else has to say. And if I think all the time, and by that I mean specifically talking to yourself subvocally inside your skull. If I think all the time, I have nothing to think about except thoughts. And so I'm never in touch with the real world. Now, what is the real world? Some people have the theory that the real world is material or physical. Let's say it's made of kind of a stuff. Other people have the theory that the real world is spiritual or mental. But I want you to point out that both those theories of the world are concepts. Well, I have a sort of suggestion, and that is this.
Okay, starting the mash in here. The strike temp was 154.2, which I set lower than normal. Usually I'm in the 6 or 7 degree range, but I did that because it's not particularly cold this morning and the grain bill isn't that much. It's only 12 pounds or so. But I'm starting to see, because I'm looking at a mash temp of 150. I'm currently at 151. We're about halfway through the grist. This thing is looking super milky, and I don't even have any. I don't have wheat or any type of flaked barley or nothing in here. Oh man, that cereal brew mash smells so good. I got the power set to 50%, and I turned on the PID for this batch. Whereas I've had the PID off for the last few brews. So we'll see how that changes. Okay, currently sitting at 149.4. And the heat turned on. I'm at 144.3 on the unit. The quart to pound ratio is increased on this batch in order to spread out the water so that I have more water in the HLT or more strike water, because the way it was constituted is that the way the profile was set up at 1.5 quarts per pound is that I had 1 gallon more of sparge water, and we don't want that, especially in this unit. I really don't even need to sparge in this unit, to be honest. It's more just an activity at this point. For a mid-strength beer like this, I could have fit in all the water. 149.9 and 143.8. Now I'm up to 150, which is nice. That's where I'm looking to be. So it's nice to see at 50% with the PID on at a 0.3 hysteresis, is that the unit's turning on when it should be. I would like the bottom. I would like the temperature probe in the Brewzilla itself, the built-in probe, to be a little bit hotter. But I'm really trying to. I'm really trying to use the wrap temperature thermometer to guide my mashes, to guide my mash temps. Mix this bad boy up, make sure there's no dough balls. Oh, found one. Okay. It's a nice consistency. Viscous, if you will. Okay. Currently sitting at 150.7 to 142.6. What I usually like to do after I know I've mixed in, after I know everything's uniform, no dough balls, first I take a picture for the Brew Tubers Club to send to my buddies, and then turn the pump on just to get some of the stuff on the corners. Ow, Jesus. Damn it. Keep forgetting that pipe is stainless steel. It's just not a good. It's a good conduit to heat, so it's going to be hot. Okay, we're going to rest this for 10 minutes, 150.4 to 142.3, and then we are going to start recirculating and take a sample. I also figure that this might be worth showing. I've beefed up my mash steps, my mash schedule. I've beefed that up in terms of detail so that I'm not relying on my phone so much to set timers. So I have this 10-minute timer set for the rest with no pump. I've started doing this on this batch. I want to see how it works. I don't want to be relying on my phone so much because then sometimes I forget to set timers and I forget certain cues. So, I have it well dialed in for my hops, but I haven't had a mash profile that is this elaborate before. And it took me some time to kind of set out, but there's a lot of steps there, as you can see. And it's built in for if I need to take more than one pH reading. Just something to consider as you're, looking at brewery or brewing softwares. This is just, my new method and hopefully something that's going to work out for me. I also have a very similar method for my fermentation profiles as well. I don't know if it'll show. Let's see. So yeah, here, as you can see, I have just to condition 2 weeks and then the day that I'm drinking it, those last 2 steps in the fermentation process, so that I know, I'm taking the carbonation into consideration. So again, just have things to help me feel and stay more organized and make me feel like I'm, putting out the best beers possible ultimately. We have completed our 10-minute rest. We're at 151.2 on the wrapped and 142.6 on the build-in. I'm going to turn the pump down a little bit, and we're going to start recirculating. And we're going to recirculate for 3 minutes before I take a sample for pH. This is my girl Citra, my 4-year-old, hopefully starting to become brewery dog. Okay. I'm going to pull a sample for pH. Try to turn this down nice and low. That's big enough. Okay, we're going to take this and throw it in the fridge. Everybody knows brew day isn't complete without a nice hot cup of coffee. Okay, so it looks like the pump ran dry. So I'm going to mix the mash. It feels pretty bricked up on the bottom. Kind of defeated the purpose of the 10-minute rest, but I haven't had a beer gum up that quickly before. The idea for the 10-minute mash rest before turning on the pump is to allow the grain bed to settle so that when I'm recirculating, the water flows through easily. It filters. All right, let's try that. There's definitely something going on because my temp shot back up to 151.2 on the wrapped. The built-in's 147.4. Before I mixed the mash, I was at 144.3 to 148.3. So I was at 144.3 on the wrapped to 148.3, on the unit. So my thinking is mixing the mash, I must have been higher on, my temp must have been higher on maybe the left side of the unit as opposed to the the right side of the unit as opposed to the left because I have the temp probe in on the left side. But I'm going to keep an eye on it. 50% with the PID on. I may shut the PID off. I did turn down the pump power. The pump power was on pretty high. I have it about halfway or so now, maybe 3/4 open. But we'll keep an eye on this. I got a few more minutes left for the sample to test pH. We're shooting for 5.5. I have my baking soda and I have my lactic acid ready to go in the event that I need to make a change one way or the other. Okay, let's take the pH sample. When I was calibrating it with the 7 pH calibration solution that I have, it was only calibrating to 6.91, 6.92. So I'm going to add 7 or 8 points to whatever reading I get.
That's not silence at all. I mean real silence, in which we stop thinking. Because after all, if I talk all the time, I can't hear what anyone else has to say. And if I think all the time, and by that I mean specific.
Okay, we're slowly going down here. We started at like 5.9, we're going down to 5.6. I'm thinking about adding a little bit of baking soda to bring it down in that 5.5.
Some people have the theory that
with the idea that the range is what, 5.2 to 5.5? So I have some room to play with if I'm high and I add too much baking soda and it falls to 5.3. I'm still okay with that.
But I want you to point out that
but it's continuing to go down, so.
Are concepts. Well, I have a sort of suggestion, and that is this.
Okay, I don't know if you can see that or not.
An idea.
Still not climbing, still going back, still going down. We're at 5.52. I haven't added anything yet. It was sitting at 5.53 for a little while. Now we're sitting at 5.53, 5.52. Adding 7 or 8 to that puts us in that 5.6 range. I'm gonna let it keep going. We'll see if it keeps falling or not. But I don't think I'm gonna add anything. I think I'm good with being on the high side. So here's some of the fallout with shutting the PID off, is that I was as high as 153.4 on the build-in when I came back downstairs. I am about halfway through the mash, and I mean 152.5 I can live with. I was shooting for 150. It is coming down, the unit is adjusting, but 145.6 for the build-in. 153.4 I think is a little bit too high. But if you look, I don't know if y'all can see that. We're pulling pretty clear right now on a West Coast IPA. Okay, we just hit our 60-minute mash. And I just turned it up to 170 degrees for the mash out. And as you can see, that thing is pulling beautifully clear. Really, really nice. I'm excited to see what conversion is on this. Mainly because I reset my brewhouse efficiency. I increased it to about 85 or 86, so we'll see where we're at for first runnings. Okay, we're just coming up to the end of the mash out. So what I'm going to do is, there it is. All right. I'm going to pull the top, the lid. Make sure my mic is on. Okay. And now I'm going to take a small sample. I'm going to run the pump. I'd like to get a nice first runnings gravity. So we'll stop that. Look at that. Nice. Nicely clear. Very nicely clear. Smells good too. And now we're going to pull the malt pipe. And we're going to start the sparge. I'm going to take my wrap temperature thermometer out. I'm going to put this in some food grade sanitizer because I'm going to use this on the back end to track cooling temp. Even though it's only been a couple of months since I've brewed, there's still aspects. They say it's like riding a bike. But I just spent 10 minutes walking around looking for the handle to the malt pipe to pull it out so I could sparge. In any event, we're currently filtering, as you can hear. I pulled a sample. I'm going to throw it in the freezer now for 5 minutes, and I'm going to start sparging. It's also worth mentioning that the filtering seems to be going much slower than normal. Which, I mean, on some level is good because the idea is that you're extracting as much sugar from the grain as you can, so if it's going slower, ideally the water's moving through the grain slower. But I definitely think there's still a stuck mash aspect. There's still some clogging probably going on. I noticed the pump was really slowing down as I was exiting the mash out. I'm going to turn this up from 170 to boiling temp. This is 2 liters. I'm at 4 liters now. I'm going to turn this up to set up a boil. And one thing I did do in this recipe, I tinkered, as I mentioned, I tinkered with my equipment profile in Brewfather more than I usually do. I really want to dial in, one thing I really want to do is I want to dial in the amount of sparge water that I need, because I'm constantly off by a gallon, 2 gallons. And so what I did is I took my grain absorption rate, which was set at 0.479, and I bumped it up to 0.500, with the idea being, I take copious notes, but it's difficult for me to calculate truly how much water I need. But I know that I always need more. So if I bump up my grain absorption rate, the idea being the grain is absorbing more water than what the calculator in the profile in Brewfather initially estimates. If I bump that up, the idea is that I'm going to need more. The software will tell me I need more sparge water. So the software is telling me I need 4 gallons of sparge water. I used almost 6 gallons of strike water. So I'm going to follow that. I'm going to do 15 liters, is 4 gallons. I'm going to sparge with 15 liters and see where that leaves me. Looking for a pre-boil volume of 8.6 gallons. Okay, I'm still sparging, but I have a sample here of first runnings. As you can see, here it is. I'm looking for a pre-boil gravity of 0.51, which means for first runnings I want to be considerably higher than that. Maybe in the 6s, mid 6s, low 7s. Let's see where we're at. There we go. Boom, 1.069, which is great. Sparging with 4 gallons should get me right around that 0.51 pre-boil range. All right, I've added all 15 liters of sparge water, and I'm not even at 7 gallons yet. So while I was mashing, I was starting to get a little ticker in my tum. And I said, why don't I go upstairs? I got the stuff to do it. Why don't I go upstairs and whip up a quick quiche? The Exit 12 quick quiche. It's basically brunch time. It's 11:30. That's brunch. So I took some leftover ham from Christmas Eve dinner. Mozzarella cheese, line the bottom of a of a pie crust with mozzarella cheese, and then I topped it with mozzarella cheese. Threw it in the oven, 350 for about 45 minutes. A little salt, pepper, garlic salt, onion powder. Nice big piece. This will help sustain me while I'm brewing. Very nice. Very cheesy. Citra's below me. She's begging. She's gotten enough ham. I gave her some leftover ham. She's good to go. All right, threw the vent on. We're at 211 degrees. I have to dial in this unit a little bit better because I boil, it reads like 218, 219, I think. So I need to calibrate the system again. Do that like boil and ice water calibration test. But with that said, we are just about ready to hit the boil. I did use another liter of sparge water. I used 3 liters total of sparge water, extra from what I originally had planned with the increase in the grain absorption rate. So I need to play with those numbers a little bit more. But I'm a lot closer than I was yesterday, and that's an improvement. Ideally, because what I do now, I have a little bit extra sparge water. I'll take an empty 1-gallon jug and I'll fill it back up. Ideally, I'd like to not do that. I'd like to have the exact amount of water that I need. Boil's starting to get going. We're going to add our hop addition shortly once we exit hot break. Okay, we're boiling. I'm going to take a small sample for gravity. 60-minute addition going in. An ounce of Centennial. Check it out. 1.051 pre-boil gravity on the nose. I mean, incredible what can happen when you plan effectively. I haven't hit a pre-boil gravity on the nose in years, probably. And if you don't believe me, sorry for the shakiness, that is what Brewfather says. 1.05. Kabbalah bang. So pumped. Okay, 30-minute addition on Progress 71 West Coast IPA is another ounce of 2024 Centennial hops from Yakima Valley Hops. There it is, 2024 batch. I think that's the ID number that they put on it, 11.4%. So we're going to continue the boil. Like I mentioned, we're 30 minutes into the boil. Our next addition is going to be 3/4 of an ounce of Centennial at 15 minutes. Okay, got 15 minutes left. 15-minute addition. 3/4 of an ounce of Centennial. Again, this is an all Centennial West Coast IPA. I got the chiller in. I added that at about 17 minutes. It did stop the boil, so I shut off my timer. It took about 2.5 minutes to get back up to boil. Gotta love 240 volts. So we're gonna continue on. Our next drop is in 5 minutes, and that's Whirlflock and Yeast Nutrient. The Whirlflock, we want this beer to be nice and clear, and the Whirlflock helps do that. Okay, 10 minutes left in the boil. Just tossed in the Whirlflock tablet. And we're gonna go in with a tablespoon of Yeast Nutrient. hopefully we get a nice, healthy fermentation on this. Also, I didn't show this, but my wife got me this shirt for Christmas. Oh, cool. Tools of the trade. Got another brewing shirt. Very nice. Very excited about it. And it's in one of my favorite shades of blue. Okay, we have hit flame out. Stopping the boil and adding, I think it's a half pound of Centennial hops. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn on the cooler. We're gonna turn on the chiller and chill this thing down. Okay, we're already down to 150 degrees. What I do is right around 160, I turn my whirlpool arm on so that it mixes the wort and helps cool faster. I am not whirlpooling this batch. I'm not adding hops during the whirlpool. The other thing I do, and have been doing for some time now, in order to save water, I line, 2 or 3 buckets up outside. I connect the output hose from the chiller. I connect it with a clamp, just like that, and I rotate in order to not only save water, but this is all warm water because of how it's, coming out of the chiller. So I got 3 buckets here, and I will run a cycle. There's a lot of hops that get left behind, and the filters do a good job catching it, but there's also a lot of hops that get left behind in the bottom of the unit. So I will use these 3 buckets to help rinse out those hops, but also to help me clean and sanitize. Okay, we're sitting at 73 degrees as we cool down. I'm also transferring at the same time the second of 2 IPLs from that 5 beer brew day when I had my buddies from the Brew Tubers over. This one is Diamond Lager yeast, and I believe this is with a dry hopped with a Zacca hop hash. We traditionally fermented and conditioned this beer. This beer conditioned for probably like 3.5, 4 months, and now I'm putting it into a finishing keg. I already did it. I did it yesterday with the other batch using Nova Lager, and just trying to get some stuff done. I got to clean some kegs. Busy day here at Exit 12.
I don't mean that kind of grim silence.
Okay, so we got down to 70 degrees. I remembered I don't have yeast in yet. I'm still waiting on Amazon to deliver. So it's a time game now. So instead of cooling down to 68 and spending the time and the money and water to try to get it down that extra 2 degrees, I figure 70 degrees is close enough. I'll transfer after a 10-minute rest. The idea of the rest is to allow everything to settle. I'll do a 10-minute rest, and I'll transfer into the fermenter, throw it in the fermentation chamber, set to 68 right now. I cleaned and sanitized my Firmzilla yesterday. And what we'll do from there is it's a waiting game for the yeast. So we're gonna continue on with the process. I gotta take a sample too. Yeah, gotta do that. So, really excited to continue the process. Look at how clear that West Coast IPA sample is. I'm currently transferring to the fermenter. Took a sample. We are shooting for 1.061. We might end up a little low. 1.060. Yeah, baby. Hell yeah. We were low, but we pretty much nailed it. 1.060. We'll see what we get into the fermenter, but looking great. Okay, let's talk. It's 3 o'clock. I'm just wrapping up the brew day, meaning I cleaned everything, sanitize the system, and I have the 2 IPL kegs cleaning right now. I have one cleaning, but I cleaned both of them out. I got one running through a cycle cleaner. I'm going to do the other one in about 20 minutes. I am going to be dumping one of the 2 kegs of my blueberry wheat beer. Trying it yesterday, it's just not up to snuff. I'm keeping another one. I'm going to keep one, the one that I haven't pulled from yet, to see how it's tasting and to give it some few more weeks until I need that space in my kegerator anyway. Let's take a look at the West Coast IPA. Sorry for the lack of lighting. I'm using the outlet right now to clean kegs, but that's what it looks like. Nice and clear, copper. Definitely getting the malty. This is obviously very early on, but definitely getting that malty character. Pine resin. Oh yeah, nicely sweet. Nicely bitter. This may turn out all right after all. I have an extended, had an extended cleanup because the second IPL keg that I was transferring into a finishing keg, my thinking is maybe some fermentation continued. I didn't have a spunding valve on it while I was conditioning. And so pressure built up and it just wasn't transferring. I got about 14 pounds into the keg and 13 pounds and it just wasn't transferring. So I had to pop the top open. That created a lot of foam. Foam came up with hot matter all over the place. I just put a towel on it and continued transferring the West Coast IPA. So I just cleaned all that up. I still have to clean the fermenter. The fermenter still has a ton of hot matter in it. So that's what kind of took a really long time. It's 3 o'clock. I'm starving. I need to eat lunch. We ordered subs for lunch, which is nice. But with that said, I still need to pitch the yeast. The problem with all that is the yeast still isn't here. The BRY97 nor the Nottingham. But fear not. Let me turn. Looks like hopefully I'll be getting it between 4:30 and 6:30. That would be nice. That means I could pitch. When I get it back, when I get the package, this camera's going back on. We'll film the pitch. And maybe we'll throw the tilt in too. Or the pill. Ooh, misspoke. Pill. Team Pill. Matt Irondale. What's up, buddy? All right. I'm going to go sit down, watch some football, eat some lunch, and continue my cleaning process. And hopefully we'll get that yeast so we can pitch it. Bang. 5:59. 5:59. And the yeast is here. It just came freshly delivered. It's Amazon, so most likely not fresh yeast, but freshly delivered. The good news is I really utilize Amazon for emergencies only, and it's only generally for yeast. Very, very rarely will I get hops. Has a due date of August 31st, 2025. 2 packages. It is a high-performing ale yeast. I was going to use 2 packages, but I think I'm just going to go with 1 because it's highly attenuating. I went with Nottingham, even though I have a bag over there that has BRY97 in it. I went with Nottingham because of the wide range of beer styles it can do, the alcohol tolerance, and the yeast, or the temperature. Firm temperature is 50 to 77. So I like that a lot. I like how you can, wide-ranging fermentation. But also what I like the most about this is that it's a neutral yeast. So you're not going to get yeasty characteristics on the beer. It's designed to bring out the hop aromatics, which I love. West Coast IPA is prototypical for that. So that's the reason why I think I'm going to go with Nottingham over BRY 97. And now that I have it, same lot, now that I have it, let's use it. So as you can see, I don't even have the top on it yet. I mean, I have the top on it. You know, I don't want to get the beer infected or anything. Here is my spunding valve. I am going to throw this on about 10 PSI. Hit it with some Sani. Hit the scissors with some Sani. Cut the top on this. What I like about Lallam and yeast are that they're vacuum packed, so they last longer. So I'm going to pitch the yeast now. Just one pack. Boom. And now the pill. Hit the pill with some Sani. Okay. Gonna drop the pill in. And there we go. I'm going to add gas to this, but we're on our way. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for following along. I'll do a beer review of this at some point once we get it ready to go. And maybe I'll even show my process for gelatin finding. We'll see. Either way, great beer brew day. I don't know if you can see this or not, but it is nicely clear. Everything's fallen to the bottom, and there really isn't even that much there, which is great. Not a lot of hop matter on the bottom, which I really like. And I still got to purchase those hops. I still got to purchase those. Still have to purchase those. The package of hop hash, whether that's Citra or Cascade. We'll see. Thanks so much for watching. L'chaim. We're at just about 48 hours post-pitch on the West Coast IPA. And as you can see, this morning I came downstairs and the Krausen was just coming up way too far. So I popped off the spunding valve and I attached a real quick tube in some sanitizer. And as you can see, that thing is going crazy. Very active fermentation on the West Coast IPA, hopped exclusively on the hot side with Centennial hops. And speaking of which, I ended up ordering hops for the West Coast IPA. Let's get this package open. So just to put it into perspective, I ordered these hops on Monday, December 30th at about 9:30, 10 a.m. my time. So in Washington, that was 7 a.m. their time. I got this package just now, the very next day, Tuesday, at, I don't even know when they delivered it, maybe 12:30 or 1:30. But that's crazy. Overnight, basically, and I didn't pay anything extra for shipping. Absolutely love Yakima Valley hops. So I ended up going with Lupomax. Lupomax is a concentrated hop pellet, so it's got a higher alpha acid percentage, and the idea is you use less and you get more of the character of the hop that you're going for. I wasn't able to find Cascade in the packages for hop hash, but I was able to find Cascade for Lupomax. 2023 crop year, so I'm a little leery of that, but here's 2 ounces. I was gonna dry hop with 4 ounces of hop hash. I'm actually gonna dry hop with 2 ounces of Cascade Lupomax. I thought about another hop, thought about substituting if they had it in Lupomax, but they did not. So 2 ounces of Cascade will be going into this West Coast IPA for 24 hours, and then I will be cold crashing for about 3 days. So it is Wednesday, the very next day. We're already down on the pill to 0.32. This thing is just ripping. I almost put 2 packages of Nottingham in here because I had 6 gallons and not 5. Sometimes with the yeast, it says to pitch. The packet of yeast only covers fermenting 5 gallons. So I was gonna pitch 2. Good thing I didn't. The Krausen looks like it might be going down quite a bit. Looks like it's settled, so I may be throwing the sputnik valve back on. We'll see. Okay, it is Friday night. My beer's been fermenting for about 5 days, the West Coast IPA. And what I've noticed over the course of the last day and a half is I've been at the same gravity. Now, what happened was I finished at 0.60. My pill is not fully dialed in, so it read 0.68. The gravity that's currently reading and has been reading for the past day and a half is 0.19. So I just pulled the sample. I'm going to take a reading on my Easy Dens that I know for sure is dialed in. It is calibrated, and we're going to get a gravity. I'm looking for 0.15 or lower. If I'm there, what I'm probably going to do now is dry hop. One of my New Year's resolutions in brewing is to jump on things quicker when it comes to the brewing process. I've been known to kind of let things sit for a few extra days, 5 days, 6 days, turns into 10 days. Next thing I know, I'm kegging a beer. I do all the work to carbonate it for 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden it's no good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a reading right now, and we're going to see where it's at. And if we like it, I'm then going to dry hop for 24 hours at 70 degrees, my diacetyl rest temperature, with 2 ounces of Cascade Lupomax. So let's see where we're at in terms of gravity. So here it is. Definitely looking more on the New England IPA side, but a cold crash. And my hope is some gelatin will help clear that up. All right. Let's take a look. .011. Look at that. So we are high. 1.012, 1.011. We'll call it 1.1. I have fermented down pretty low. We'll put that into the calculator. Hit stop. And then what we'll do is we'll go into Brewfather. As I said, we were shooting for, so we're at 0. It actually went down to 0.18. 68 degrees. 1.060. We were shooting for 1.015, as you can see. So 1.011 puts us at 6.4%. Pretty solid for an IPA, I would say. And I think that what I'm going to do now is dry hop, hit it on 70 degrees, and then we're going to then cold crash for 3 days. Okay, I got a fresh bottle of sanitizer, nice and warm, thanks to the good folks at 5 Star. I'm going to hit my scissors with some SaniClean. Hit the hops with some SaniClean. There we go. And now we're going to pop this bad boy open. We're going to dry hop. I want to be as quick as possible. So we'll open these first. Cascade 12.5% Lupomax. Oh man, Oh man, so piney smelling. Okay. All right. There we go. Fermenter's open. Here it goes. 2 ounces going in, baby. Lupomax hops. Boom. Easy money. All right. All right. Now, in an ideal world, I did that so quickly that I didn't risk oxidation. One of my favorite things is seeing, after I dry hop, seeing all the protein and the hops, everything's kind of re-energized, so to speak. You can see things, it's very active now. I'm going to keep an eye on the pill as well, because maybe we'll move another few points down, but we'll see. Either way, really cool. Really excited about this beer. Can't wait to report back on the tasting. And as you can see, the pressure is already going up. Very cool. Also, one of the other things I'd like to do this year is taste the beer at different points of the process. So I'm going to taste this sample just to see where we're at. I know I just dry hopped, but just want to see where we're heading. The beer has a yeasty smell to it, which I think makes some sense. It's not fully fermented out, maybe. But there is that kind of yeasty character. Not getting much from the hops yet. L'chaim. Oh, that's fun. Okay. So, I'm getting a nice sweetness on the front end, hit with the hops in the middle to back end, but more bitterness. My hope is the dry hop amps up the aroma, because I'm not getting much by way of hops on the aroma at this stage. But you definitely get nice West Coast IPA hop bitterness on the flavor. Hopefully the Cascade bumps that up. But that Nottingham yeast is just letting the malt and that hop bitterness shine, which is nice. Hopefully, though, that aroma goes up to like that nice piney West Coast IPA I'm looking for. Okay, it is Tuesday night, January 7th, and I am now getting ready to keg. This beer has been sitting for 3 days, getting on it. Dry hop, bring it up to 70 degrees, 3-day cold crash, keg, let's go. Getting into it quickly. As you can see, I did something a little bit different this time. What I'm finding is when I cold crash, I'm losing pressure. And what I mean by losing pressure is with the temperature, CO2 is dropping into solution. And so I'm losing pressure. So oftentimes when I generally cold crash, what happens is I come the next day or 2 days later, come into the fermenter, open it up, and there's give. There's no pressure in there. So what I've done now instead is I just connected the CO2 to the fermenter to constantly keep it on pressure. And it seems to have done the trick pretty well. It's still very firm 3 days. My concern is less so about suckback, because I use a spunding valve. I don't traditionally ferment. More so, it's about any type of oxygen possibly getting in with the suckback, losing the pressure. I guess technically I'm not losing pressure. I'm losing pressure, but technically, in theory, O2 should not be going in unless there's a leak. In any event, what I do, and I found this for clarity of my beers, what I do is I start the transfer process, and then I go upstairs and I get my gelatin ready, because I will be adding gelatin to this, and then I add the gelatin in, in the beginning of the kegging process. I'm not really overly concerned with, cold side oxidation at that stage. Just pop the top open, drop it in, it mixes into solution, it doesn't stick to the bottom of the keg and become really hard to remove. So, putting the keg here on a scale, pounds and ounces. I have my transfer set up, 2 big boy bouncer filters. I have already taken a sample. I'm going to take another gravity with the dry hop edition. As you can see, looks pretty good. We're going to start transferring this, and at the same time, while it's transferring, I'm going to go upstairs and I'm going to start the gelatin process. Hook up a spunding valve to the end to allow the appropriate amount of CO2 out while I'm transferring. Connect the line. Okay. Oh, this is one of the more difficult parts here. Okay. Okay, I'm actually gonna turn the gas down. All right. And now, zero it out. And now we are going to turn it on, and I'll actually grab the camera to do a close-up. Okay. As you can see, the scale is at 0. We're going to press this down. All right. And now we have beer going through the lines. It's filling up. It's filling up. It's going through the line now, slowly filling up. It's going to start coming through the line. Hopefully soon. There it is. And in we go. And now we're filling up. Okay. We got 3/4 of a cup of water. I'm at about 3 pounds, 8 ounces. The scale shut off while I was upstairs heating this up. We had a minor emergency in the bathroom. Apparently the toilet's leaking. So I'm gonna have to fix that later. But for now, we're gonna pop the top. Pop the keg top. We're going to drop in the 3/4 of an ounce of gelatin water mixture. Boom. Very nice. No gelatin left in the cup, which is fantastic. I always have issues with that. But what I've found is I've started adding my gelatin differently. Or rather, what I should say is I've started mixing my gelatin differently. Shout out to Fermentation Adventures Kurt. What I've started to do is, instead of adding the teaspoon of gelatin after I heat the water, I find that after I do that, after I heat the water and mix it, takes a long time, temperature's going down, and it's not mixing effectively enough. I put it in cold water, distilled water, mix it, wait until it's fully mixed in, and then heat it up. And I did it on the latest batch of my blonde ale. I added it into the keg during the kegging process, just like I did now. Kegged it, carved for 2 weeks, and boom, it came out crystal clear, which is nice. So we're gonna take a gravity reading now, just to see where we're at, and then we'll give one more final taste test. Okay, we moved down 2 points, 1.009. We were at 1.011. The dry hop, the rousing of the yeast added 2 more points, which puts us firmly at 84% attenuation, 6.7% alcohol. I was shooting for, I think the initial planning was for 6% alcohol. So almost 1% more. I'd rather be too high than too low. 6.7, fantastic level for a West Coast IPA. Here it is, probably looking a little bit more East Coast IPA at this stage. I would like to darken it up. We'll see how it looks in the glass with the gelatin added. And as I just check on it to make sure I'm still moving. And then we'll get a better sense of the color. But as of right now, I probably would add some darker malts to bump up that SRM a little bit. Let's get a nose on this. This has been sitting for probably about half hour, 45 minutes, but it's very cold down here, so. Yeah, that's nice. Pine, really nice pine. Oh, that Cascade dry hop did something. Nice pine, orange peel, orange zest, an oily orange. The aroma on this is as good as I've brewed for the Progress 71 series. Really getting a nice malt backbone, nice sweetness on there. A nice like day-old biscuit kind of aroma, but in a good way. Yeah, really nice, almost pine needle-esque. I'm gonna take a sip of this L'Chaim. Interesting. So I'm getting a green hop character. That's going to be the dry hop with the T90. Lupomax. I usually don't do it. I rarely dry hop with T90 pellets anymore. But I'm getting kind of that green kind of character sitting on it. It was kind of partly what I was trying to avoid by getting to this beer quick, you know, with the cold crash, the 3-day cold crash, and then kegging it, getting it off the yeast. Yeah, just that really, really hoppy, green, almost soapy kind of character comes through a little bit on the back end. We'll see. I'm gonna keg condition this for 2 weeks. I'm gonna carb it for 2 weeks, and we'll see how it turns out. And we'll do a tasting then. Okay, it is late January, and we're finally here with a tasting. Just wanted to show you just how clear this thing is. I mean, truly incredible.
I don't mean that kind of grim silence.
Nice rocky head. Although I will say the head is a little thin, but it looks good. Overall, a really sweet looking beer.
I mean real silence.
Super, super clear.
Stop thinking.
You can see the Trillium logo. This is one of my favorite, probably my favorite glass to use when I have a beer like this, nice and clear. I love to see it. The bubbles are coming up, not as fast and furious as I would want, but they're coming. Let's get a nose on it.
And so I'm never in touch with the real world. Now, what is the real world? Some people have the theory that the real world...
So that orange rind, that orange peel still comes through nicely on the finished product. Pine, more like pine needle than pine sap. Really nice like malt sweetness, kind of richness coming through, which is actually very, very nice. I like that a lot. I don't know why I just said actually right there. I should get that. You should get that in a West Coast. Good job, Nick.
Have a sort of suggestion,
I should Barry Horowitz myself. Look it up.
and that is this.
If you know what that reference is, put it in the comments.
The real world is not an
This
idea.
video is over an hour long at this point, so I want to go through this relatively quick, but I did want to give you an update on the beer. This is a true grain to glass video, probably my longest one to date. I'm going to take a sip of this now.
Before we
L'chaim.
decide either to save the planet or to destroy it. We pause for a moment. of
Yeah.
time.
So, if you remember, you know, the beer post dry hop when I kegged it. Remember, I dry hopped for 24 hours, I cold crashed for 3 days, and I immediately kegged it. The cold crash was 2 ounces of Cascade Lupomax.
I mean, real.
The beer was like really, really green. Very, very, it was getting that kind of character of Band-Aid-y, kind of medicinal,
And if I think all the time,
very hoppy. That really, really kind of phenolic, almost hoppy character that you get in New England when you dry hop New England sometimes with T90. That was one of my that was my biggest concern with using any type of pellet hop. I've been very averse to it over the course of the last year or two. I would rather use a hop product. Lupomax technically is a hop product, but it's like an amped up alpha acid version of normal T90.
other people have the theory that the real world is spiritual or mental. But I want you to
That
point
flavor
out that both those theories
has
are
pretty much dissipated. I mean, it gives way to this beautiful malt character.
Well,
6.7% alcohol. Bitterness hits you up front. It does stick around a little bit, but it's a really, really nice hop bitterness.
The real world is not an idea. It is not work. We pause for
I would say the hop bitterness is very approachable on the harsher end, but it's appropriate for this style. Really nice orange rind character on the back end. Really nice pine character. Really, what for a West Coast is 2 style. This is, I'd have to remember back. I've made a batch of Progress 71, different iterations of it, probably 5 or 6 beers.
which we stop thinking.
This is probably the best one I've made, which is showing progression.
All the time. I can't hear what
With that said,
anyone else has to say.
there are some changes I'd like to make. 6.7%, there should be more malt sweetness on this.
Subvocally inside your skull.
So I'm thinking I may reduce
I think all the
the
time.
boil hops. I may reduce that bitterness a little bit. I do think the bitterness is probably a little bit too high.
Some people have the theory that the real world is material or physical.
But also you got to remember,
It's made a kind of a
I just poured this now, so it's very cold,
theory that the real world is spiritual or mental.
very cold. So maybe that the temperature may amp up the hop character a little bit more.
Are concepts.
Really, really nice. My method of cold crashing, my method of kegging, my method of adding gelatin, not changing that. Absolutely love that. Drinks real nice, especially for a 6.7%. Overall, I'm happy with this. I'll be honest, when I was tasting it, I thought I was going to be throwing it out. I thought I was dumping the keg. When I was tasting it at the day of kegging, I thought I was going to be dumping it out. I'm glad I held on to it. I almost didn't finish the kegging because it's turned out to be a really nice beer. It's a very nice beer. There's still some work I want to do before I have a house West Coast IPA, but for 2025, this is a great start. It really is. Technically brewed this at the end of December, but the first homebrew I'm drinking in 2025 that I brewed, basically, the most recent.
And if I think all the time, and by that I mean
Really
specifically
nice. Awesome.
talking to yourself.
So I'm going to continue sipping on this. This was a long one. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Give me some feedback on if you like the long form videos. I can break these up into 2 if it's more palatable. Just let me know. Thanks so much for watching. I'm going to continue drinking this. This keg's going to get taken nicely. It's going to be drunk for sure. I'm going to be canning some up for some buddies. and I'll be shipping this out because this beer is good enough for that. Looking for some good feedback as well. Thanks so much for watching. L'chaim.
Are concepts. Well, I have a sort of suggestion, and that is this. The real world is not an idea. It is not...